Hey, Mr. Graber's class, I'm so excited to see you next week. In the meantime, I wanted to introduce you to something that we at Ford's Theater call the podium points. The podium points are basically the how-to of public speaking. So we're going to be referring to these podium points throughout the entire year as a way to give each other feedback and as a reference point for how to accurately examine public speaking. These are your tools for delivery, but they're also your tools for how you can offer feedback to each other. So the podium points are broken down into two sections. These are your verbal and your physical sections. So it's not just what you say, but it's also how you say it that matters, how you use your body language. In the verbal section, we have 5 devices, and these are, they have a great little acronym to help you remember them. So PED-TV, PED-TV. And these 5 are pace, emphasis, diction, tone, and volume. Pace is really just how quickly or slowly a person speaks. So sometimes you can increase your pace to show excitement about something. Sometimes you can slow it down to really make sure that your audience is understanding it. The key is to keep things varied and to fit the pace to whatever you're trying to express. Emphasis is the stress placed upon certain words when speaking. So I can look at a sentence that is printed, and most of the time, there's no indication of which words should get emphasis. You're not always going to find that something is underlined or italicized. So when you're using somebody else's words to deliver a speech, it's up to you to interpret how you want to emphasize those words. What are the words that are going to really pop and to help an audience to understand your message and to really go along with it? Oftentimes, it's not about being right or wrong. It's really just about choosing the strongest words you can to get your message across. And you can emphasize words by using some of the other podium points, for example, like volume. You might make something a little bit louder to make it stand out, or a little bit quieter. You might pick up your pace or slow it down intentionally as a way to emphasize it. You'll figure it out on your own. But again, it's not usually about right or wrong. It's usually about stronger and weaker choices. So I tend to advise students to always look for what I call the juicy words, which are things like nouns and verbs and adjectives that have a lot of color to them, figurative language. But typically we want to avoid smaller words like the and even, and this is a really hard one for our modern day way of speaking because we love to emphasize these in everyday life, even pronouns. Typically, I would choose something else. And the word not, modern times, we like to emphasize that. But most of the time, the verb that it's near is going to be more important, and we're still going to hear the not. So we'll work on these things together. The next one in our verbal list is diction. Now, diction has 2 meanings. The first is basically like your enunciation, right? How clearly and distinctly you can pronounce something when you're speaking it. It's really important when you're speaking to make sure that you capture both the beginnings and ends of words. Sometimes a word can sound like something else if you don't get those end consonants on there, like run and runt, like runt of the litter. It doesn't make any sense without the T, right? It could sound like I'm gonna go run a race. So you wanna be really careful to be crisp and clear in your diction. The other meaning of diction that's really important is that it also means word choice. So by that, I mean when a person is writing a speech, they're really particular about the words that they choose. Novelists are, playwrights are, speechwriters are. We choose words because they come closest to the meaning that we want to convey. So it's important when you're working on a speech that somebody else has written that you think about their diction in terms of their word choice. Why that particular word? Why that phrase? What does it convey? What does it mean? How does it resonate? I always think of Shakespeare because this is what my background is. So when Juliet, in Romeo and Juliet, when she's waiting for Romeo and she's so excited, she says this phrase, which is way too long to go into, but she says, "Gallop apace, you fiery-footed steeds." She says steeds, not horses. Steeds are a kind of horse, right? Because horse is kind of generic. She says steeds, not nags, because they're kind of slow and plodding, right? She doesn't say ponies, which maybe are smaller and less powerful. She says steeds. Steeds are noble horses. They're fast horses. That's what she's looking for. So Lincoln does the same thing in his speeches, and you'll see it as you look at all sorts of speeches this year. It's all about choice. And when you get to writing pieces, whether it's a speech or something else, I want you to also be aware of your diction in the sense of word choice. What's going to help you to convey your meaning the most? Okay, next on our list is tone. Tone is the emotion that's conveyed by the sound of the speaker's voice. I remember I had a teacher in 8th grade. I don't even remember her name, but she was very boring and she said everything in this flat monotone. It was completely emotionless and I zoned out. It was awful. So what we're wanting to hear from a speaker is some sense of passion, some sense of investment in the emotion. So you'll want to think about the tone, the setting, what's happening. If it's a funeral, you're going to sound a little ridiculous if you're like, and it was awesome, right? Okay, and for a pep rally, you don't want to be like, it's going to be the best game ever. That's not going to help you. So tone is all about how can you get the audience on your side? How can you take them with you on this journey? Last but not least, on our verbal section here is volume. This one's really easy. It's how loudly or quietly a person speaks, right? You want to be loud enough that your audience can hear you clearly, not too soft. Microphones help with that in the modern day. But that one is actually like kind of easy. So I don't think it needs too much more explanation. Okay, so those were your verbals, PED TV. Pace, emphasis, diction, tone, and volume. Let's move on to our physical section. So there's only 3 you need to remember here, and their little acronym, their little mnemonic device is PEP. PEP. P-E-P. So you have posture, eye contact, and presence. Posture is all about how the speaker holds him or herself, right? You want to think about standing up tall when you're giving a speech, not like slouching, right? And when you're standing, you want to think about having your knees relaxed and your shoulders down. I don't know about you all, but when I get nervous, my shoulders start to like creep up, right? When I get tense. So we want to try to relax those shoulders, and we'll do some exercises together this year to help you out with that so that you can present confidence in how you're holding your body. Even when you're sitting, if you're doing something on camera, which you might be doing this year because, hello COVID, you want to be thinking about how you're carrying your body in the shot. What can people see of you? How are you holding yourself? Okay, eye contact. This one's pretty obvious. It's when a person looks directly at an audience. What we want with eye contact is for it to be made often and with many members of the audience. We want to do that because it feels then like the speaker is talking directly to you. And oh, isn't that nice to be invited in, right? To be welcomed into this person, almost like it's a conversation, even though it's one-sided. So we're going to practice that. You can absolutely give good eye contact, even if you have to like look down periodically at your paper. You can still look up. So it's not necessarily about being memorized. It's just about finding those places to make eye contact with the audience. Okay, and then the last one is presence. That's the speaker's energy and connection with the audience. I like to think of it as sort of charisma. It's confidence. It's the way that you present yourself, the whole package. So it's wrapping up all of these things that have come before. What you want as a speaker is to project confidence so that even before you open up your mouth to speak, the audience is like, this person looks like she knows what she's doing, or he knows what he's doing, right? We want them to get that impression of us. So this year, we're going to be spending a lot of time looking at these podium points and incorporating them into our work, whether that's working on speeches or presentations or what have you. I'm so excited to see you next week. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.